Good morning, everybody. Today I am speaking about the course of the French Revolution of 1789. In that, let us discuss about the tennis court oath. The tennis court oath is very, very significant in the history of the French Revolution of 1789. It is very difficult to give precise answer when exactly the French Revolution began. However, it is the opinion of many historians of Europe that the French Revolution began with the State General, with the convocation of State General or the feudal parliament of France, which assembled at Versailles on 5th May 1789. Louis XVI convened State General or the feudal parliament of France on 5th May 1789 after the long gaps of 175 years. The State General did not meet since 1614. When the Louis XVI called State General on 5th May 1789, the people of France and their representatives were full of pleasure and happiness. This State General consisted of three categories, namely the nobles, the clergy, and the common people. The feudal parliament of France or State General consisted of 300 representatives of the nobles, 250 representatives of the common, the 250 member representatives of the clergy, and 600 representatives of the common people of France. But formally, the three estates of France used to sit and vote in separate chambers. But unfortunately, now the commoners of France or the third estate of France insisted on sitting with the first estate and the second estate in a single vote. The third estate of France insisted upon voting by individuals, not by orders. But the nobles and clergy or the representatives of the nobles and clergy did not agree with the demands of the common people. The nobles and clergy refused to discuss and sit with the common people of France. But the common people challenged that everyone should sit together and discuss. But the nobles and clergy, who were very small in number, opposed the ideas of the common people of France or third estate of France. In this way, in the meanwhile, Louis XVI sided with the privileged class or sided with the nobles and clergy and tried to suppress the representative of the third order or third estate of France. But as a result, on 17 June 1789, the third order of France proclaimed itself a national assembly and invited the nobles and clergy to join it in the work of the national reformation. But the nobles and clergy declared themselves, they isolated themselves from its formation. The formation of a National Assembly was a landmark in the history of the French Revolution. It was a great day in the life of the common people of France. In addition to that, the common people or third estate had achieved their victory over the king and privileged classes of France. But under the leadership of Lafayette, many nobles and the representatives of lower clergy joined the National Assembly. But Louis XVI began to obstruct the work or function or achievements of the National Assembly of Third Estate. As the king closed the hall, the common people of France or the representative of the common people went into neighboring tennis court and they took an oath under the leadership of Bailey that not to separate until not to disperse until they drafted a new constitution for France. This is known as the tennis court oath. In the meanwhile, Abbasius and Mirabeau were the leaders of the Third Estate or commoners of France. According to C.D. Hazen, the tennis court oath ended Bourbon monarchy in France and paved the way for the sovereignty of the common people. This is the story of the tennis court. Now let us discuss about the fall of Bastille. The fall of Bastille is an important episode or event in the history of French Revolution of 1789. On July 14th, 1789, the fall of Bastille took place or broke out in France. There were two reasons for the fall of Bastille. In the first one, to drive away the revolutionaries or Third Estate of France in the tennis court field, Louis XVI, who belonged to the Bourbon dynasty of France, sent the army. The greatest mistake done by Louis XVI was that he sent the army to suppress the revolutionaries. If at all, or in case Louis XVI had not sent the army to suppress the revolutionaries of France in the tennis court field, the French Revolution of 1789 would not have taken place. This is the first reason for the fall of Bastille. Second one, Louis XVI, on July 11th, Louis XVI dismissed Necker, who was a former economic minister of France. It became immediate reason for the fall of Bastille. On July 14th, 1789, a mob or a crowd at Paris under the leadership of Camille Desmoulins, who was a famous journalist of France, attacked the Bastille, a royal fortress, and let free the political prisoner. But unfortunately, these political prisoners also joined the revolutionaries. As a result, the strength of the revolutionaries became very strong. Delaunay and his soldiers fought very bravely against revolutionists. But finally, Delaunay and his soldiers surrendered to revolutionaries. The flame of the French Revolution broke out, spread like a wildfire in everywhere of the country. The fall of Bastille is the first victory of the common people of France. The commoners hoisted a tricolor flag for the revolution instead of a white flag of Bourbon dynasty. The commoners or the revolutionaries or Third Estate killed many relatives of the nobles, clergy, and Mary Antoinette. So even today, on July 14, 1789, the National Assembly proclaimed as national holiday. Even today, the people of France are celebrating on July 14, 1789 as their Independence Day. The fall of Bastille brought about certain important results. The first important results of the fall of Bastille is that as a result of the fall of Bastille, Paris Commune was established in Paris in order to establish peace and security. National Guard came into existence. The second important results of the fall of Bastille is that feudal lords revolted against, the peasants revolted against feudal lords. The third important results of the fall of Bastille is that Necker was reappointed as the economic minister of France. The fall of Bastille paved the way for the bread crisis. This is the story of the fall of Bastille. Now let us discuss about bread crisis. Like the fall of Bastille and the tennis court oath, even the bread crisis is also one of the important events in the history of the French Revolution of 1789. The scarcity of food problem was created in Paris, the capital city of France, on the of the during the revolution. On 5th October 1789, a women's demonstration against the scarcity of food in Paris was turned into a movement against the Palace of Versailles. It is known as bed crisis. But according to Anne Besant, it is not a bed crisis, it is a purely epithet revolution. A long line of the poorest women of Paris, armed with sticks, club, and broom, under the leadership of Lafayette, and marched from Paris to Versailles, crying, bread, bread, bread. This is known as bread crisis. A long line of the poorest women of Paris crying bread, 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 and demanding the bread. They surrounded the royal palace and demanded the bread from the king, and is returned to Paris, the capital city of France. So they marched from on October 6th, 1789. Again, they shouted bread, bread, bread in front of the Versailles, the palace of Versailles. At the time, the representatives of the a long line of the poorest women sent Maurice and Chabra to the court of Louis XVI. But Louis XVI and Mary Antoinette were caught, and as a result, the long line of the poorest women of Paris caught both Louis XVI and Mary Antoinette, and his little cook boy, and marched from Versailles to Paris. In the mid of the way, they shouted that, a long line of the poorest women shouted that, are crying, we have the baker and the baker wife and little cook boy, now we shall have bread. Louis XVI lost his control over the revolution. Louis XVI lost his control over the revolution when it reached its climax. But in the meanwhile, September massacres and reign of terror took place in Paris. Louis XVI and his wife Mary Antoinette tried to flee to save their lives. But unfortunately, from the beginning itself, the revolutionaries are the common people of France observed closely their activities. In the meanwhile, Robespierre, the leader of the Jacobin party, used to say, he made a stirring speech, Louis XVI must die because the country must live. As a result, on January 21st, Sunday, 1793, Louis XVI was executed, and his followers were also guillotined. On October 16th, 1793, even Mary Antoinette was also guillotined. With the death of Louis XVI and Mary Antoinette, the French Revolution came to its end. This is the story of bread crisis and course of the French Revolution of 1789. Thank you.